Admiral Kexthal's 3 hearts beat in perfect synchronization as he watched the holographic display flicker to life in the Federation's Grand Assembly. Representatives from 47 star systems materialized around the circular chamber, their alien forms casting strange shadows in the blue-white light. The vote had been building momentum for months, but tonight would make it official. "The motion before us," announced Chancellor Vorth, her crystalline voice echoing through the vast space, "concerns the primitive world designated Sol 3. Intelligence reports confirm they have achieved basic spaceflight and nuclear capability, but remain confined to their single planet." Kexthal straightened in his command throne. As Fleet Admiral of the Federation's Third Armada, he would lead any military action. The humans had caught their attention 3 years ago when their radio signals reached Federation monitoring stations. What they found was both amusing and concerning. A species that broadcast their location while remaining completely unaware they were being watched. "They call themselves humans," continued Vorth, her 6 arms manipulating data streams with practiced efficiency. "Carbon-based, short-lived, and remarkably aggressive toward their own species. They have divided their single world into competing territories and wage constant warfare among themselves." Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. Representative Zorak from the Epsilon sector raised a tentacle. If they cannot achieve unity on one world, they pose no threat to the Federation. However, their resources are substantial. Fresh water, oxygen-rich atmosphere, and mineral deposits that could fuel expansion for centuries. Kexthal had studied the intelligence reports extensively. Humans appear to be a contradiction, technologically advancing yet politically fragmented, capable of remarkable creativity yet prone to self-destruction. Their military technology was laughably primitive by Federation standards. Chemical propulsion rockets, metal projectile weapons, and nuclear devices that were barely more sophisticated than what his own people had used millennia ago. "I move for immediate annexation," declared Senator Mythic, his scaled hide glowing with excitement. Their resources could supply the Outer Rim colonies for generations. One show of force should be sufficient to ensure compliance. The voting began immediately. Kexthal watched as system after system cast their approval. The humans had no idea what was coming. Federation scouts had observed Earth for months, cataloging military installations, population centers, and industrial capacity. The analysis was unanimous. Resistance would be minimal and brief. Motion carries. Vorth announced as the final votes registered. "Admiral Kexthal, you'll prepare the Third Armada for immediate deployment. Estimated time to complete annexation." Kexthal rose from his throne, his towering frame commanding attention. 2 standard cycles at most, Chancellor. The humans possess no space-based defenses, and their largest military vessels cannot even reach their own moon consistently. We will establish orbital control, then demand surrender. If they refuse, selective strikes on military targets should convince them quickly. What Kexthal didn't mention was a strange feeling that had been growing in his gut since reviewing the human intelligence files. Something felt wrong about the data, though he couldn't identify what. The humans seemed almost too vulnerable, their weaknesses too obvious. In his 2 centuries of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Still, the evidence was overwhelming. Humans were barely capable of sustained flight within their own atmosphere. Their weapons were crude, their military organization chaotic, and their political structures constantly shifting. They had never encountered alien life and showed no signs preparing for such contact. As the assembly dissolved and representatives returned to their homeworlds, Kexthal began mentally organizing an invasion fleet. 50 ships should be more than adequate, enough to demonstrate overwhelming superiority without unnecessary destruction. The Federation preferred to acquire new resources intact when possible. His tactical aide, Commander Yilsent, approached with a data pad. "Admiral, the human monitoring stations have increased their activity in the past cycle. They appear to be launching more observation satellites." Kexthal frowned. Increased activity could indicate they suspect something, but it's more likely routine expansion. They're still in their early technological development phase. He paused, studying the data. "However, double our stealth protocols during approach. No point in alerting them prematurely." The next several hours passed in a blur of preparation. Ships were recalled from patrol duties, crews assembled, and supply lines established. The Third Armada represented the Federation's most advanced technology. Quantum phase hulls that could bend light around them, weaponry capable of cracking planetary crusts, and shielding that could withstand direct impacts from stellar mass objects. Against such power, human resistance would be symbolic at best. As Kexthal reviewed the final invasion plans, he couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was missing from their intelligence. The humans broadcast constantly: entertainment, news, scientific data, and personal communications. Federation analysts had decoded their languages and studied their culture extensively. Yet something about their behavioral patterns felt rehearsed, almost performed. He dismissed the thought as pre-mission anxiety. In 48 hours, the Third Armada would enter the Sol system, and humanity would learn they were no longer alone in the universe. What happened next would depend entirely on how quickly they accepted their new reality. The vote was cast. The fleet was prepared. Soon, Earth would join the Federation, whether its inhabitants agreed or not. Dr. Sarah Chen's fingers trembled as she entered her access code into the underground facility security system. 3 miles beneath the Nevada desert, the Global Defense Initiative's primary command center hummed with activity that would have been impossible to explain to any civilian. Banks of quantum computers processed data streams from satellites that officially didn't exist, while holographic displays showed tactical information gathered by observation posts scattered across the solar system. Status report, she called out as she entered the main operations chamber. The response came from Colonel Marcus Webb, a man whose military record was officially classified at levels that most government officials couldn't access. "They're coming, Dr. Chun. Long-range sensors detected the fleet 36 hours ago, just outside Pluto's orbit. 50 ships, just as the projections indicated." Webb's voice carried no surprise, only the grim satisfaction of confirmed intelligence. Sarah nodded, settling into her command chair. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored systems that represented humanity's greatest secret. They had been preparing for this moment for over 60 years. The charade was about to end. "Initiate Protocol Omega," she ordered. "All hidden installations to full operational status. Begin broadcasting the prepared signals." What the Galactic Federation didn't know was that humanity had been aware of their existence since 1947. The crashed ship in Roswell hadn't been the first contact. It had been the final piece of a puzzle that human scientists had been assembling for decades. Radio telescopes had detected structured signals from multiple star systems since the 1930s, and by the early 1940s, pattern analysis had revealed the existence of an organized galactic civilization. The revelation had triggered the most ambitious deception in human history. Dr. Chun called out Lieutenant Morrison from the communication station. "We're receiving the expected demands for surrender. The alien admiral is requesting immediate response from Earth's governing authority." Sarah smiled coldly. "Patch me through to Admiral Kexthal. Let's introduce ourselves properly." The main display flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of the Federation admiral. His reptilian features showed surprise at receiving a response so quickly, especially one coming from what appeared to be an advanced command facility. "I am Admiral Kexthal of the Galactic Federation Third Armada," the alien began, his universal translator rendering his words in perfect English. "You will identify yourself and explain this facility's location. Our intelligence indicated no advanced installations on your world." "Your intelligence was designed to be incomplete, Admiral," Sarah replied calmly. "I am Dr. Sarah Chun, Director of Humanity's Global Defense Initiative. We've been expecting you." The alien's expression shifted from surprise to confusion. "Impossible. Our monitoring has been comprehensive. You lack the technology for space-based defense systems." "Actually, we don't." Sarah gestured to her tactical officer. "Show him the Prometheus stations." The display split to reveal 6 massive space stations that materialized seemingly from nothing, their stealth systems deactivating simultaneously. Each station was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything the Federation had observed in human development. Kexthal's composure cracked visibly. This cannot be accurate. Where did you acquire such technology?" "We built it," Sarah said simply. "Admiral, your people have been observing humanity for 3 years. We've been observing the Federation for 70. Every radio transmission, every ship movement, every technological advancement. We know about your homeworlds, your military capabilities, your political structure, and your plans for expansion. The alien admiral's 3 hearts were beating so rapidly that Sarah's sensors could detect the elevated life signs through the communication link. You're bluffing. Your species has never achieved interstellar travel. Haven't we? Sarah's smile grew wider. Computer, show Admiral Kextal the current positions of our deep space reconnaissance fleets. The tactical display expanded to show the local star group. Red markers appeared throughout the region, indicating human vessels positioned near every major Federation installation within 50 light years. Some ships had been in position for over a decade. You see, Admiral, we learned something important from studying your people. You're explorers and conquerors, but you're not particularly creative thinkers. You assume that because a species appears primitive, it actually is primitive. You never considered that we might be deliberately maintaining that appearance. Kextal was struggling to process the implications. The wars, the political divisions, the technological limitations. Theater, Sarah interrupted. A performance designed to make you underestimate us while we prepared for this moment. Every conflict you observed was carefully orchestrated. Every apparent weakness was deliberately displayed. We've been studying warfare for millennia, Admiral. Not just the technology of warfare, but the psychology of it. Colonel Webb stepped into the view of the communication system. Admiral, you're currently surrounded by a fleet that outguns yours by a factor 10 to 1. Your ship's quantum phase hulls are useless against our gravity wave detection systems. Your plasma weapons can't penetrate our adaptive shielding. And your crews have never faced an enemy that fights the way humans fight. The Federation Admiral was beginning to understand the scope of his miscalculation. What do you want? Sarah leaned forward in her chair. We want you to go home, Admiral. Take your fleet and return to Federation space. Tell your council that Earth is not available for conquest. Tell them that humanity prefers to remain isolated for now, but that we're aware of their existence and will respond accordingly to any future aggressive actions. And if I refuse? The smile faded from Sarah's face. Then you'll discover why humans have spent 10,000 years perfecting our warfare, while your people have grown comfortable with easy victories against primitive species. Admiral, you came here expecting to conquer sheep. Instead, you encountered wolves. Admiral Kextal terminated the communication link with hands that shook despite his years of military training. Around him, the bridge of the Federation flagship Eternal Victory erupted in confused chatter as his crew processed what they had witnessed. The tactical display showed impossible readings, human vessels appearing from seemingly empty space, weapon signatures that shouldn't exist, and defensive positions that indicated preparation spanning decades. Admiral, his tactical officer Vexmar whispered, the energy readings from those space stations, they're operating on principles our scientists claim are theoretically impossible. Kextal studied the data streaming across his displays. The humans had somehow mastered gravitational manipulation, quantum field generation, and what appeared to be localized space-time distortion. Technologies of the Federation had been researching for centuries without success were being casually displayed by a species they had dismissed as barely above primitive status. Sir, Commander Yilsent approached cautiously. Long-range sensors are detecting additional human vessels. They're everywhere. How did we not see them before? The answer was becoming terrifyingly clear. The humans hadn't just hidden their true capabilities. They had orchestrated one of the most sophisticated deceptions in galactic history. Every piece of intelligence the Federation had gathered was exactly what humanity had wanted them to see. Open a channel to the Federation Council, Kextal ordered. Priority Alpha encryption. Chancellor Vortha's holographic image materialized within minutes, her crystalline features sharp with anticipation. Admiral, I trust the annexation is proceeding smoothly? Chancellor, we have a problem. The humans were prepared for us. Vortha's 6 arms ceased their constant motion. Explain. Kextal transmitted the tactical data directly to the council chambers. He watched as the Chancellor's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something approaching fear. The Federation had built its expansion on the assumption of technological superiority. That assumption had just been shattered. This is impossible, Vort declared. Our intelligence was comprehensive. Multiple observation teams, detailed analysis of their communications, complete tactical assessments, all which they controlled. Kexthal replied grimly, "Chancellor, they've been watching us for 70 years. They know our ship designs, our weapon capabilities, our strategic doctrines. They know everything about us while we know nothing accurate about them." The implications were staggering. If humanity possessed such advanced technology and sophisticated intelligence capabilities, what other species in the galaxy were not what they appear to be? How many civilizations had the Federation encountered that were actually far more dangerous than they seemed? "Admiral," came the voice of Dr. Chun through an incoming transmission. "I hope you're having a productive conversation with your leadership. While you're discussing your situation, you might want to review the additional data we're transmitting to your fleet." New information flooded the Federation ship's computers. Detailed schematics of Federation vessels, complete personnel records of fleet crews, tactical analyses of Federation military doctrine, and most disturbing of all, real-time intelligence on Federation military movements throughout the galaxy. Kexthal felt his blood temperature drop as he realized the scope of human surveillance. They had been watching everything, analyzing everything, preparing for everything. The Federation's expansion plans, their military strategies, even their internal political disputes, all of it was documented in files that human intelligence had been compiling for decades. "How?" he whispered into the communication channel. Dr. Chen's voice carried an edge of pride mixed with warning. "Admiral, do you know what makes humans different from most species the Federation has encountered? We're paranoid. We assume threats exist even when we can't see them. We prepare for wars that might never come. We create contingencies for scenarios that seem impossible." Colonel Webb joined the transmission. "For the past 70 years, we've been operating under the assumption that eventually someone would notice our planet and decide it looked valuable. We've spent 7 decades preparing for that moment, building weapons, developing strategies, positioning assets, and most importantly, learning everything we could about potential enemies." The tactical display updated again, showing the true scope of human military deployment. It wasn't just the local defensive installations. Human vessels were positioned throughout Federation space, many having been there for years. Observation posts, supply caches, and what could only be described as prepositioned strike forces were scattered across dozens of star systems. Chancellor Vortha's voice crackled through the subspace link. "Admiral, the Council is ordering immediate withdrawal. This situation requires complete reassessment." But Dr. Chen wasn't finished. "Admiral, before you leave, there's something else you need to understand. We didn't develop all this technology in isolation. We've been in contact with other species for decades, species that the Federation believes it has successfully conquered or intimidated into submission." The implications hit Kexthal like a physical blow. "You're saying?" "We're saying that the galaxy isn't what the Federation thinks it is," Colonel Webb confirmed. "You've been expanding into territory controlled by civilizations that are far more advanced than they appear. Humanity isn't unique in its capacity for deception, Admiral. We're just the first ones who decided to reveal ourselves." New sensor contact began appearing on the Federation fleet's displays. Ships with configurations that didn't match any known Federation designs were emerging from stealth throughout the Sol system. Some bore resemblance to vessels from species the Federation had encountered decades ago, species that had supposedly been pacified or absorbed into the Federation's sphere of influence. "Admiral," Dr. Chen's voice carried no finality, "humanity is offering you a choice. Return to Federation space and report that Earth is protected by defensive capabilities that make conquest impossible. Recommend that the Federation reconsider its expansion policies and perhaps open diplomatic channels with the species it believes it has subdued. And if we refuse?" The tactical displays showed weapon systems powering up throughout the Sol system. Not just human weapons, but technologies from a dozen different species, all focused on the Federation fleet. "Then you'll discover that the galaxy has been preparing for the Federation just as carefully as we prepared for you," Dr. Chen replied. "The choice is yours, Admiral, but choose quickly. Our patience has limits." The journey back to Federation space took 12 standard cycles, but for Admiral Kexthal, each day stretched like an eternity. His fleet limped home with sensors recording data that would fundamentally change the Federation's understanding of galactic civilization. The evidence was undeniable, yet he knew the Council would struggle to accept the magnitude of their miscalculation. As the Federation's core worlds came into sensor range, Kextal received an encrypted message that made his remaining heart skip beats. Human vessels had been detected in orbit around the Federation capital world of Nexus Prime. They weren't hiding anymore. Admiral, his communications officer reported with barely controlled terror. "We're receiving greetings from the human ships. They're welcoming us home." The main display activated to show a human female in what appeared to be a Federation uniform, though her insignia were completely unfamiliar. "Admiral Kextal, this is Captain Jennifer Walsh of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We've been waiting for your return." The impossible just kept expanding. Humans were operating freely in Federation space, using Federation technology, and apparently had been doing so long enough to establish official protocols for diplomatic contact. "How long?" Kextal asked, though he dreaded the answer. "How long have we been here?" "About 15 years for this particular mission." "How long have we been monitoring the Federation's core worlds?" "Since the 1980s by your calendar. We've had permanent observation posts in this system since before you were born, Admiral." Captain Walsh gestured to something off-screen, and the display split to show multiple human installations throughout the Nexus system. They weren't just observation posts. They were fully operational bases with defensive capabilities that rivaled anything the Federation had constructed. "The Council is waiting for your report, Admiral. I suggest you prepare them carefully. Change is difficult for established institutions, and the Federation has some significant adjustments to make in how it views galactic politics." The meeting with the High Council took place in the same chamber where the invasion had been authorized less than 3 weeks earlier. This time, however, the atmosphere was entirely different. Representatives who had confidently voted for human conquest now sat in stunned silence as Kextal presented evidence of humanity's true capabilities. Chancellor Vorth examined the data with all 6 arms working frantically. "This intelligence suggests that multiple species we believe to be pacified are actually operating advanced hidden civilizations. The Altarian Collective, the Vegan Trade Federation, even the Andromedan remnants, all of them have been maintaining the illusion of subjugation while building capabilities that dwarf our own." "It gets worse, Chancellor," Kextal reported. "The humans have been coordinating with these species for decades. They've created an intelligence network that monitors our every move while remaining completely invisible to our detection systems." Representative Zorak's tentacles writhed with agitation. "Are you suggesting that the Federation's expansion has been allowed to continue only because these species chose not to stop us?" Before Kextal could respond, the chamber's communication system activated on its own. Dr. Sarah Chun appeared in the center of the assembly, her image projecting with a clarity that indicated she was using Federation technology to override their security systems. "Honorable members of the Galactic Federation High Council," she began with diplomatic formality that somehow carried undertones of threat. "I am Dr. Sarah Chun, representing the Terran government and the Coalition of Independent Worlds." Chancellor Vorth's crystalline voice cracked slightly. "Coalition of Independent Worlds?" "The 63 species of the Federation believes it has successfully conquered or intimidated," Dr. Chin explained calmly. "We've been meeting regularly for the past 40 years, sharing intelligence and coordinating our response to Federation expansion. Humanity was selected to make first contact because our psychological profile suggested we would be most effective at making an impression." The Council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Representatives from 47 star systems suddenly realized that their military and economic superiority was an illusion. The species they had dismissed as primitive or conquered were not only far more advanced than anticipated, they had been working together. "What do you want?" Chancellor Vorth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. "We want to avoid unnecessary conflict, Chancellor. The Federation has resources and capabilities that could benefit galactic civilization. Your people are skilled explorers and organizers. Your trade networks and communication systems are impressive achievements. But," Colonel Webb's voice joined the transmission, "your expansion policies and conquest-based diplomacy are unacceptable to the majority of galactic civilization. We're offering the Federation a choice. Transition to a diplomatic and trade-based relationship with other species, or face the combined response of 64 worlds that have been preparing for conflict with you for decades. Representative Mythic Scaled Hide had shifted to colors indicating extreme distress. You're threatening the Federation? We're offering the Federation survival. Dr. Chin corrected. Admiral Kextal witnessed a small demonstration of human defensive capabilities in the Sol system. That was less than 1% of the Coalition's combined military strength. If the Federation continues its current expansion policies, you will face resistance from species far more advanced and far more ruthless than you can imagine. Chancellor Vorth processes information with the desperate efficiency of a leader facing civilizational change. What specific changes do you require? Immediate cessation of military conquest operations. Transition to diplomatic first contact protocols for new species. Recognition of the sovereignty of worlds the Federation currently considers subjugated. And participation in a new Galactic Council where the Federation would be one voice among many, rather than the dominant authority. The silence in the chamber stretched for several minutes as representatives grapple with the complete reversal of their understanding of galactic politics. Finally, Chancellor Vorth spoke. And if we agree to these modifications, the Coalition will share advanced technologies with the Federation? Dr. Chin smiled. Chancellor, the Coalition has technologies that make faster-than-light travel seem primitive. We have weapons that can manipulate stellar mechanics and defensive systems that operate outside conventional space-time. More importantly, we have knowledge accumulated from thousands of different species across the galaxy. But access to these advances requires trust, and trust requires behavioral change. The Federation must prove it can exist as a partner rather than a conqueror. 6 months after the failed invasion of Earth, Admiral Kextal stood in an observation deck aboard the newly constructed diplomatic station Alpha, watching human and Federation engineers work side by side on projects that would have been impossible to imagine a year earlier. The Federation had agreed to the Coalition's terms, though the transition had been neither smooth nor complete. Dr. Sarachin joined him at the viewport, her expression reflecting the complex mixture of satisfaction and concern that had become common among Coalition representatives. How are your people adapting to the changes, Admiral? Kextal considered the question carefully. Better than expected, worse than hoped. The younger generation is embracing the new technologies and cooperative frameworks. The established military leadership is struggling with the concept of partnership rather than dominance. It was an understatement. Several Federation sectors had attempted to continue conquest operations in direct violation of the new accords. The Coalition's response had been swift and devastating. Entire Federation fleets had been disabled without a single shot being fired, their crews unharmed but their vessels completely inoperative until they agreed to withdraw. The demonstration near Rigel Prime was particularly effective, Dr. Chin noted, apparently reading his thoughts. Freezing an entire battle fleet in temporal stasis, while negotiations proceeded, certainly made an impression on the holdout sectors. Through the viewport, they could see one of the Coalition's most impressive achievements, a massive space station that served as both a diplomatic center and a demonstration of what galactic cooperation could accomplish. Technologies from dozens of species have been integrated into a structure that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that Federation science was still learning to understand. Dr. Chun, Kextal said carefully, "May I ask a personal question?" "Of course. When humanity first detected Federation signals 70 years ago, did you immediately begin planning for war?" Dr. Chin was quiet for a long moment, watching the work crews install what appeared to be a gravity control system that operated on principles the Federation was still trying to comprehend. "Admiral, humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped that first contact would be peaceful. We prepared for the possibility that it wouldn't be. But you went so far beyond preparation. The deception, the coordination with other species, the development of technologies that surpass anything we've encountered. Because we learned something important from studying the Federation's expansion history," Dr. Chin replied. "You've encountered hundreds of species over the past millennium. The overwhelming majority submitted to conquest or were eliminated. The few that maintained independence did so by being so obviously dangerous that you avoided them entirely. She turned to face him directly. Humans chose a third option. We decided to appear harmless while becoming so dangerous that conquest would be impossible. We gambled that if we could demonstrate overwhelming superiority at the crucial moment, rational beings would choose coexistence over conflict. Admiral Kextal processed this. And if we had chosen conflict anyway? Dr. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then the Federation would have learned why 64 species have been preparing for that possibility for the past 4 decades. Admiral, the human defensive demonstration you witnessed was designed to convince you that resistance would be futile. If you had continued the invasion anyway, she gestured toward a section of the station where non-human engineers were working with technologies that made space-time itself appear malleable. You'd have discovered that some members of the Coalition don't share humanity's preference for avoiding unnecessary casualties. The implications were sobering. The Federation had built its expansion on the assumption that technological superiority guaranteed victory. Now they were learning that true technological advancement created possibilities for conflict resolution that went far beyond simple military dominance. The Andromedan remnants, for instance, Dr. Chen continued, have weapons that can selectively delete matter from existence. The Vegan Trade Federation has mastered technology that allows them to manipulate probability itself. The Altarian Collective has developed methods for consciousness transfer that make physical destruction irrelevant. Kextal felt a chill run through his reptilian physiology. You're describing godlike capabilities. We're describing what becomes possible when civilizations focus on advancement rather than conquest of thousands of years. Dr. Chen corrected. The Federation has impressive organizational and logistical capabilities, Admiral, but you spent your development focusing on projection of force rather than expansion of knowledge. Through the viewport, they watched as a human engineer demonstrated a gravity manipulation tool to a group of fascinated Federation technicians. The technology allowed the user to create localized gravitational fields, essentially enabling construction in three-dimensional space without traditional support structures. This cooperation could benefit both our civilizations immensely, Dr. Chen observed. The Federation's expertise in large-scale coordination, combined with coalition technological advancement, could solve problems that neither group could address alone, such as galactic-scale environmental restoration, faster-than-light communication networks that don't rely on physical relay stations, maybe eventually contact with civilizations in other galaxies. Admiral Kextal contemplated this possibility. The Federation had always assumed they were among the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Now they were learning they were barely beginning to understand what was possible. Dr. Chen, will humanity ever share the full extent of your capabilities with the Federation? She smiled, but it was a complex expression containing elements he couldn't entirely interpret. Admiral, humanity has shared less than 10% of what we've learned in the past 70 years. Full technological exchange will happen gradually, as trust develops and as the Federation demonstrates its commitment to cooperative rather than conquest-based relationships. But someday, Dr. Chen looked out at the stars visible through the viewport, stars that both civilizations now knew contained far more complexity and intelligence than either had previously imagined. Someday, Admiral, the galaxy might be ready for what becomes possible when civilizations truly work together instead of competing for dominance. Humanity hopes the Federation will be part of that future. As Kextal watched human and Federation crews working together on technologies that promised to reshape galactic civilization, he reflected on how completely wrong their initial assumptions had been. They had come to conquer a primitive world, and instead discovered a galaxy far more complex, dangerous, and promising than they had ever imagined. The vote to invade Earth had indeed brought a reckoning, but not the one the Federation had expected.